I say that. So my situation was the exact same way, Jonathan. Matter of fact, I signed onto a company that was like the 400 employee. The company that I'm still working for now. Now we're like 4,000, right?
Yeah.
Was with the company for 6 months. Went over to KL my first day. Saw that a GM was retiring, and I literally asked, since half of my team is over here, why not I be over here and be the leader in this area? My boss at the time, who's now our COO, said that same day I was on the phone with HR. I made it. He made it happen. 3 years. Me and the family, my daughter, my son was born there, lived in APAC, or Southeast Asia, right?
Yeah.
And it was because of the company size, the opportunity that you saw, and the opportunity that I created at that point in time as well too, by asking for it. And more importantly, it's the relationship that I had with my manager at the time, who can ultimately say, yes, you can do that, right? So I like the point that you hit on, Jonathan, that, for some of us, we have the goals to work for these big companies because it makes our resume look good.
Yeah.
You still don't get a lot of the opportunity to do many things in some of these big companies as you will with a smaller company. And quite honestly, although we talk about the salaries of these FANG companies and how high they are, but those are for people at higher positions a lot of the times, guys. And I'm going to tell you like this. I'm in the supply chain industry, and most people don't even know the name of the company that I work for and so forth. It's E2 Open. But we are a big player in the supply chain SaaS cloud space. We pay more than many of these FANG companies in lower and higher positions. It's just what it is. It's just, even in sales, we pay more. So, it's glorified to work for big companies because it makes your resume look good. And typically what you will find many people doing is they say, okay, well, I want to get this on my belt because I can then use that to go anywhere. If anybody would, I can go work for a startup after that. But if you don't work for a company that has a big brand, a big name behind it, it's harder to get into some of those big companies. So I think that's the reason why many people want to strive for those bigger companies and so forth. Moving on, you hit on a piece of it that I want you to re-hit on, the complacency piece of it, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Talk about that piece of it as well, because ladder climbing is something that we do. And what I mean by ladder climbing is taking the steps every single day to continue to learn, to continue to educate yourself, and get to a point where, you're going to continue to be a student in an I can't even speak right now, to continue to educate yourself, to hit the goals, whatever it is that you want to hit. That is against complacency, because you're always striving for something. Talk about you and your career where you hit that complacency level, and then ultimately what was the catalyst to make you say, you know what, I need to be doing something else. Talk about that.
It was really clear how I got complacent. To me, it was like, and it's a good and bad thing, right? I got complacent because I really enjoyed what I did. I really enjoyed it. I was working with a technology. I was really good at it. I really enjoyed the work. And then it also was that because it was this whole, I was on the services side, which is kind of like very similar to consulting, right? I was doing different projects. So I was like, okay, I'm doing a project, for months in New York City. And then, then they had me living in the Bay Area for a while, and then I was doing it in Japan and then New Zealand. I'm doing so I was really having a really cool life doing this work, and it was financially rewarding because they were giving me, I was getting good money for it, and I didn't realize that the money on the sales side was better. I didn't understand that at the time, but I was really happy with the money, so I wasn't complaining, and so I did it for a while. And then, as I said, once you get to a point where the money's not necessarily the motivator that's driving you to make changes, I was enjoying the work, and then I look up and I realize, well, I'm doing the same thing. And then you start to see other people do a little progression, and you realize, oh yeah, okay, maybe I'll make a change. And I never stopped to realize that ability to make a change had passed me up because I had been doing the same thing for so long that what I thought would be a simple task of like, okay, maybe I'll go do something else was actually quite difficult. One, because my skill set was very directed into one specific sort of technology, one space. And then I also, the soft skills I had not really developed to do other stuff, right? I had not networked to meet other people and to do these other things. I didn't understand the business that had changed that made these other things more, these other technologies and skill sets more desirable, right? So ignoring all those sorts of things, now I realize, oh man, I'm behind. And so trying to, and I think anyone, your listeners here would understand, like trying to pick up some brand new tech that you have no background in, that you don't have any experience in, it is difficult. It is difficult. It's difficult to get that to a mastery level, especially when you're no longer a an entry level kind of person, right? I've been at this point, I've been in my career 10, 15 years or what have you. And it's like, I can't go take an entry level role. I wouldn't even be considered for an entry level role. And so how can I go switch into the skill set that I have no background in, but also be a senior resource?
Mm.
It's a really tough situation. And so, yeah, that was not, and it was all because I got complacent. I should have been making strides in these other areas all the time, all along the way. I should have never got to a point where I just didn't, I didn't increase my skills. Now that you're a student forever in this business. And I used to joke around that I remember when I was young, I would come home and I'd be working on whatever thing I could do. And then after you start, consulting, you're flying everywhere, you're tired, you're doing all stuff. I would come home and my laptop would sit in the garage till I picked it up on Monday. I wouldn't even I'd drive it in. It's like, hey, that's a wrap. And part of that though was because I'm a really big fan of one thing that made me able to do this kind of business. It's hard. People think it's all luxury when you're in these hotels and you're flying everywhere. It's hard work. It's unhealthy. It's a lot of stress. It kills relationships. It's a lot of problems. But I'm a big fan of work hard, play harder kind of thing.
Mm.
And so when I got home, it's like, okay, I'm not gonna be, unless I'm actually trying to solve my work problem, like build something, do whatever. I'm not thinking about work all weekend. And I do think that's the right attitude. You do need to detach, but I took it too far in the point that I didn't factor in, well, I may not need to do work this weekend, but I might need to do some study. I might need to do some other kind of enablement. I need to do something to, you know, to exercise my brain in a sense, to keep my career going. And the other piece to this complacency was I didn't take on higher roles that probably that I could have gotten. I could have taken
Mm.
more. I like being an individual contributor. I don't like necessarily being a people manager. And the fact that I can keep making more money as an individual contributor, I quit looking at management roles and I just kind of got happy in what I was doing. But staying at a certain level and realizing that, okay, well, I can't take this same role somewhere else because the person in that role has to be an expert, where similar to like a salesperson can go somewhere else because they know sales. A people manager can go somewhere else because they already know how to manage people,
Right.
right? But being an individual contributor, being my only offering is that I know the technology, I know the job, and that's hard to transition to like a completely different company that does a completely different thing. And this might be a little particular in my space of working for like software vendors, working in big tech. It could have been
But
different if you maybe worked in other industries, but it was definitely a struggle.
yeah, and so you mentioned something which I talk about a lot too, right? Is um, you know, individual contributors versus management. I like to say this, right? Because
Yeah.
you want to solve, if you want to solve the diversity challenge that we see in tech, because you don't find many of us in some of these positions, right? Even getting the opportunity to go and live abroad in Australia for 10 years and New Zealand and so forth and, Southeast Asia and fly around and stuff like that. You don't find many of us in these or getting a lot of these opportunities, but you can get these opportunities or help others get these opportunities if you're in positions of higher power within some of these
Yeah.
companies. And I preach that if we want to have and solve some of these diversity challenges, you got to have some people who are just willing to do it. And I'm one of
Yeah.
those people that does it, right? To
Yeah.
not only
Yeah.
just share my life's journey of getting there, but also to share that you can do it as well too, right? And when you're into these positions, you can get paid a lot of money and do a lot of cool things with the resources that you get for that. And one of the things that people constantly come to me for, Jonathan, is coaching, and they feel like they have golden handcuffs on. Golden handcuffs meaning, Antoine, what is it that I need to do in order for me to not have to do this anymore? Right? What is it that I have to do in order for me to not have to do this anymore? Matter of fact, I had a really good coaching call last week, and a gentleman knew what he had to do. He's been working as an engineer for a number of years, right? But he's never looked at continue to climb the ladder. If you were to say, Jonathan, how many years does one necessarily stay in a role before they move to do something else? What would that be? What would be your answer, right? Because I know mine,
Yeah.
and I know
Yeah.
mine throughout my career, right? I typically change every 2 to 3 years to do something else and continue the ladder climb, which ultimately comes with different levels of responsibilities and salaries and so forth, which has allowed for me to break away from these golden handcuffs, meaning that I've been able to make a good amount of money to invest in other areas of my life, real estate, this that I'm doing on a Saturday, right? Coaching and, all the other business ventures that I have going on, to really say, I don't have to do this corporate stuff anymore. I like to do it. I want to do it because I want to ultimately get somewhere, but I don't have to. If they said tomorrow, Antoine, we don't need you, I'm good, right? I'm good.
Yeah.
Now, for you, what would be your answer for individuals who are struggling with this? Because many of us get to that 6-figure role and we become complacent. We don't want it anymore. We're not driven by that money at that point in time. But we also get to a point where we are making the money and money isn't the driving factor anymore, which can also stop and cause some complacency as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're making $500,000 a year and you see that constantly coming in. Like, I'm not driven by money. I have everything that I want. Well, what is it that you want to do? You can become complacent just by staying there. Talk about what is it that you would recommend to individuals who get to that point in complacency. What do you see as the number of years they should stay in a role before they move on and do something else? Talk about that.
I would say I look at it. I would tell people look at it in maybe two ways. One being, it's time to move before you're ready. Meaning, I know a lot of us get into this, and I have to fight the urge myself of, well, I'm not ready for that role. I need to do a bit more here. I know, like, you can't wait till you're comfortable, because until you really like, I'm confident that I can do that role. Because you trust me, you actually can do it long before you feel that confidence. That's just that insecurity kind of talking, the fear kind of talking. Trust me when I tell you, you are ready for that. Because the people who do get those roles and go in, they were just like, hey, I'll fail forward, right? I just, if I get in there and mess up, I can move back. Like, you got to take chances. And so I would say it's time to go before you're ready. And then on the other side of it is, I always, in the last several years, I always looked at a little bit this. I wasn't perfect with this, but this is something I try to stress to people is, um, when you're taking roles, right? Already understand before you get to that role, it's a chess game, right? Where are you trying to be after this role? All right. So you need to understand, okay, if I'm on the help desk today, and at the end of the day, I want to be, CIO or whatever. Okay, what are the pieces need to look like that need to get there? And so if you say, okay, I think it's these 4 or 5 roles I have to work, I need to become manager of this team or whatever. All right. As soon as that role's open, you should be going for, right? There's nothing you, if someone is willing to give you that job, you're ready.
Mm, mm,
So, and we're in a day and age now where there's no real sense of that company loyalty, right? There's none of this. I need to stay here for 3 years. Like, I don't even tell you. Don't. I know we used to be more concerned with, well, I don't want my resume to look like I'm a job hopper or whatever. I don't think it. I mean, it's not necessarily great, but I don't. I wouldn't stay at a job just to avoid that sort of look anymore.
mm,
I think the way the world works, the way that this new economy works, people just go for whatever works for them. I don't believe in any sense of extreme loyalty that I think especially people of my age, I think in our 40s and stuff, our our parents came up in an age where you went to some place, you worked for 20, 30 years and you were loyal to the company and the company was somewhat loyal to you, and that was kind of the mindset. But not anymore, right? Nowadays you look out for yourself.
mm,
And so when
mm.
you get that job, you should already be thinking about what's the next role you want to be in. All right. That doesn't mean you got to go today, but that means you understand, okay, I'm working as a data analyst today and I want to be maybe chief data officer tomorrow, or at least the head of analytics tomorrow. Okay. If that's where you want to go next, I start looking at, well, who's the head of analytics today? What's their background? What did they do? Okay, let me put, that's what I'm gonna start doing here. And I'm gonna start, that's the steps I'm gonna take. And once I've done those steps, time to go.
Yep. Yep. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, Jonathan, I know we were under a time crunch. I want to get to the chats. You still got some time for a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, good, good, good. Fantastic. I agree. I agree with everything that you just said, especially along the lines of where do you want to be at? It's forward thinking. It's not checkers. It's chess. If you want to become a CEO of a company, you have to have sales experience. You have to ultimately be a GM. You ultimately have to be a vice president in multiple areas across the business. You have to be a leader. You have to have management experience. You have to show a track record of progression. I love it. Absolutely. Absolutely love it. I love the fact that you said, be selfish, guys. At the end of the day, it's about us. It's about what we want to accomplish. It's not about, how long you want to be at a company. It's what you want to accomplish. If you want to make $1 million, gain the skills that you want by getting the opportunities and working for certain companies in certain positions, and then do something, whatever else you want with that. It's about you, not about it, right? So be selfish. When you are selfish like that, you're taking your career in your own hands.